We're back in the Canadian Tire kitchen this morning with another spooky baking recipe, and I think most of us can agree the best part of the cupcake is the top. All right, and here with the recipe for cupcake tops is Food Network Canada's Anna Olson. Anna, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
We're good, thank you.
All right, so we're making cupcake tops, not the full cupcake, just kind of like the muffin tops. We love the muffin tops. All right, so what ingredients do we need?
Well, Carolyn, it's true what Jeff said. We really just like the frosting, but I'm going to focus at first on the cupcake top, which essentially is a cake cookie. So instead of baking it in a cupcake tin, we're going to bake them on a baking tray like we would cookies. I've got my dry ingredients sifted here: sugar, flour, cocoa powder, baking powder. And I'm adding half a cup of room temperature butter, and I'm going to work that in. You can use electric beaters if you want. What is different about this batter, Jeff and Carolyn, than a regular cupcake batter is it's a little more dense because it's got to hold its shape on the baking tray because it doesn't have the actual cup to fit into.
Okay. All right. Now, you have a technique for scooping that batter onto a tray and to make the perfect round cupcake top?
Yes, this is a perfect tool. You want an ice cream scoop. It's great for chocolate chip cookies, any type of drop cookie, muffin batter. And in this case, to get the perfectly round shape, you want to use a smaller round scoop. Just in the butter, quickly work in my sour cream, a little milk, eggs, and a splash of vanilla. And then you just combine this batter until it's blended, just like so. But I know what we really want to get to is the decorating, right?
Absolutely.
But you can see here that the batter is thicker. It almost looks like a cookie dough, but it bakes up like a cake. So I'll just show you a scoop. When you put it on your baking tray, you want to make sure you level the scoop and then drop it straight down, just like that. So it looks like a cookie, but only 12 minutes in a 350 oven. And they flatten out because of the butter and sugar. And there it is, a perfect little cupcake top. So we can just cover this with frosting.
Just over 10 minutes. You mentioned 12 minutes at 350 in the oven. And yes, you've got frosting. That is, of course, the best part. And we understand it's just not any frosting, Anna. It's buttercream frosting.
Yes, this is a cupcake buttercream. So I whip butter with icing sugar. I add a little milk. Of course, you can add cocoa powder or chocolate to make it a chocolate one. But I wanted to add colors to suit Halloween. So I'd love for each of you to pick what you want me to make out of these cupcake tops. So your choices are, you've got a Halloween pumpkin, a mummy. I think my personal favorite is the monster under the bed, or a witch's hat. So Carolyn, you pick first.
Oh, well, you sold the monster under the bed. Let's go with that one.
Okay. Now, this is a funny little tip that kind of does a spaghetti effect with the frosting. So I just pipe that in little dots all around the top of the cookie. And then, of course, you can't go wrong with candy eyeballs. I've got candy eyes to add. So even though this is black in color, it tastes like vanilla frosting. And the clothing easily.
Okay.
So we'll add the scary monster's been up late at night, so he gets pink eyes, and then we'll add the googly eyeball. So all of a sudden, with a simple technique, you've got something a little spooky and creepy. And now what about you, Jeff? What would you like?
Okay, by the way,
Mummy,
Anna, that's the way I come into work most days, actually, just before I get into makeup. I think the mummy. Let's try the mummy.
Okay, the mummy's a fun one. So I just stick with the white buttercream. And then first I pipe just a dot in the center and I glue on my candy eyes because that guides the strips of fabric. And so using a tip that is usually used for petals when you're making roses on a wedding cake actually become the strips of fabric for the mummy. Anna, and you just cover it.
As you decorate that, and you're giving us tips right now, I know in your new book, Baking Day, you give plenty of decorating tips. What other little pieces of advice can you give amateur bakers?
Well, I think what is great about baking and taking some time to bake, and when I refer to a baking day, that can be an hour to a full day, depending on how involved you want to get. Your equipment does not have to be complicated. You can start with electric hand beaters, a couple of basic baking pans, and go from there, and you can have lots of fun. The idea is when it's baking, whether it's something fun and playful like this or getting into birthday cakes or bread baking, because we've all been obsessed with that, is that you spend that time in the kitchen. So I think tip number one is give yourself a little patience and also give yourself a break, because if something happens, I completely dropped one of my nicely decorated cupcake cups. It landed upside down on the counter. So what do? You scrape it up and you eat it, because no one knows.
That is the number one baking tip right there. Anna Olson's new cookbook, Baking Day, is available now. Anna, thanks as always. Good to see you.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
This portion of the morning show is brought to you by Canadian Tire, Canada's kitchen store.